Good evening, lords and ladies. We have a very special guest today, the patriarch of Progeny, the man, Lachille, our source. Welcome.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for having me on again.
Thank you so much for coming. The community loves it, and we're very excited. We're going to do this on the fly. It's not scripted, no questions. So hit it, Craig.
Oh, this is how it goes.
Yes.
So, how you been since the last time we spoke? It was quite brief, but
Yeah, I've been super busy. Hopefully it's visible to the community. I've gotten a lot done in the last month or so, and I'm still plowing forward, trying to knock out the rest of the broken stuff as well as get some new stuff into play.
Absolutely. The last 2 weeks, you've been on it. You're jamming. Wow. We got our potion vendors back. We got
hey,
heartstones, all kinds of stuff. Thank you so much.
I
Really
felt
appreciate your hard work.
yeah, I felt like I was just knocking them out of the park, and then of course I come up to the next thing on my task list, which was like running full speed into a brick wall. But hey, you can't win them all. Sometimes the balls hit back.
Yes.
yes, most
Well,
definitely. Uh,
do you want to talk a little bit about the progress on the new hide, or do you want to go
Yeah,
over the heartstones and all that stuff
yeah.
again? Because
I guess I could tell you a little bit about because everyone already knows about the Heartstones, the blood bank. Um, Actually,
the
let's
only
do. Go
yeah,
ahead.
the only thing is that the only one thing is for the heartstones, I think people are confused as to if they're going to be bonded still or why they're not bonded. So that might be good to address.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what's already done, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's in the works for the coming weeks. So
Sounds good.
first off, the old Heartstones and pretty much all of the old items obviously were broken when the system came under DDoS. We were
oh
literally
no.
kicked off. We were kicked off of the server that we were on. They just said, we don't deal with this, and we didn't realize you're running a game, and that's against our whatever. And although I've been there for years, and they never seemed to complain about it before. Anyway, end of story is they kicked us off, and the only way to really protect Progeny from this ever happening again was to completely privatize the game system, the API that the system actually uses, put it on a different server, and not have that host be associated with me in any way that can be tracked. So, I put it out somewhere else, and then I put the actual Progeny domains on a completely different host with a completely different IP address and all that. So the stuff that talks to the actual game server is talking to this new server that the only place that is ever referenced is from in-world scripts, which is, to the best of my knowledge, cannot be hacked unless you're a linden. So they should be, pretty safe. The downside of that is all the old stuff is now forever broken. So the only way I can do a fix or upgrade is to simply replace the device. Now, when it comes to the Heartstones, my original plan was, hey, the Heartstones have a registration on the server. So I simply set them all to, quote, upgrade, and with the intent of when I sent out the new Heartstones, it would detect an old one ready for upgrade and then copy those settings over to the new one. But then there was a bug in that first release, and a lot of them went out before I realized it. So, long story short, if you send in your old Heartstones to get new ones, and you res them out, they may rebind themselves to each new Heartstone may rebind itself to an old Heartstone you used to have, and then those bindings will be valid. But also, if you have previously resed out a new one and redid the binding, they don't redo. So you may or may not have to rebind your new stones when you get them. That said, once they're bound, they should stay bound. except for the fact that we had, prior to the system getting hacked, I was getting a lot of concerns about people being stalked by the old Hearthstones. I was with a boyfriend and he had a Hearthstone. He was helping me out, but then we broke up, and now every time I feed, they show up. So
Sorry to laugh. That must have been so frustrating, sir.
yeah,
Horrible.
well, I mean,
That's why I
it
broke
wasn't.
mine with Craig.
Yeah, well,
Just
it wasn't just a few of them. So there was definitely a need for a way to break them. So we came up with the idea of the silver dagger to sever the silver cord that links a vampire to his or her heartstones. And the way to get it done quick, one of our community members, Mr. Nightwolf, was making a comment today in the suggestion box about making that silver dagger selectively sever those cords. So, okay, maybe I want to sever my cords with, Vampire Frank, but I want to leave my cords to Vampire Ben, because Ben's my new sire or what have you. That's a good idea, and I should have done it that way, but my concept at the time was get it done fast, so that I can get this out to the community as soon as possible, rather than making them wait for me to design something else and something new. So I will probably go back at some point and update the daggers to allow for selection. The old Hearthstones, I couldn't have done that because it didn't have anything for me to query in the database as to who owns those stones. The new one does. So that is a possible upgrade in the future. But for now, if you were previously bound to a stone and your previous mentor gets a new stone, they may automatically rebind to you. They may not. They may need you to come in and rebind selectively. Regardless, the stones are there, they work, and they are easy to bind as long as your target is willing. And if you find yourself being targeted by somebody with a Hearthstone that you don't want to be targeted by anymore, you can get yourself a silver dagger, sever them all, and then go rebind to the ones you want to. So I think that is a better situation than it was when we had none of them.
absolutely. That's fantastic. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
much are you selling the dagger for?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think it was like 300 linden or something like
Okay.
that. The same as the stone. It's not meant to be a rare or expensive item. It's there to be used and thrown away. So
Okay.
I don't see people needing these all the time. There's been a few that have bought them just because they collect everything that comes out in Progeny.
Yes.
And then there's a few that have been used. So they're just there if they're needed. It's not meant to be, expensive or a roadblock or what have you.
Okay.
With regards to the potions, they work pretty much exactly as they used to, with the exception that if a vampire drinks a VRD, a vampire restoration potion, and they're already undead, it only heals them a little bit. I have an idea about addiction and habituation for use of those, which I think is really cool. But
Ooh,
I
that
did.
is a cool idea.
Yeah, the idea is that if you're a vampire and you're abusing these potions for rapid healing, that you should have the potential to become addicted to them. So habituation means that the more you use them, the less effective they are. And addiction, of course, means that if you become addicted, it can become painful to come off of them. So I've got a whole little plan that I shared on the COL forum.
And very real. I like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tried to model it on real life addiction to some extent, and I think it adds something neat to the system. But after posting it, getting some reviews and some feedback, I realized it's a cool idea, but it's technically what I call new work. So it's going to have to wait. That update will have to wait till after I finish these other things. But that update will not require that I update the potions themselves. It's just strictly a back end thing. So when I implement it and make it work, it'll just start working for any potions that are still out there. So I will no longer need to send out, updated potions or vendors or what have you. Speaking of vendors, last week sometime I also figured out how to mimic, copy, make the snow globe vendor that we have for the Hearthstone. I've previously been able to sort of hack that apart and make one for like the bank chair and stuff and the dagger, but those were no copy because those were actually made by a previous Diabolic who left the system, and I didn't have a full perm version, but I've now kind of manually recreated it, so I do have a full perm version. It's really, really close to the original. It looks nearly identical. The textures aren't quite the same, but it's close enough and it looks cool. And I kind of like that style over the other ones, like the crate with the bottles and stuff in them. So I will probably at some point update the purchasable vendors as well as be able to provide vendors, clan-owned vendors for like the Hearthstone and other things as well. There's a balancing act there, though. We like to have some things that can only be gotten on the main Sims to keep traffic coming to the Sims, to make it a place people like to come and meet and stuff. So when I feel that something is, nice to have for the clans and not, super necessary for the Progeny Sim, then I'll like open that up as, hey, if clans want to have their vendor, then they can go ahead and get them. That's in the works for later, and now I can do it with the bubble vendor too, instead of the old boxy, less attractive vendor.
That is very cool.
And you see that, folks. I hear all over the lands our source that the source is lazy, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't do that. And yes, we're vampires, but you know what, time is minimal, especially when you have a wife.
Yeah, and kids and a full-time and a 40 hours plus job, and sometimes I'm lazy. I mean, there's no getting around that. If I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for months straight, I get burned out and I need some time off. That does happen. But also, when it comes to Progeny, I have so many hours in the day that I can put in. And then a lot of that gets eaten up by political drama and the fact that everybody comes to me with this and that and that and this and can you fix this and when I answer hundreds of emails and whatnot, sometimes I just don't have any energy left to code. I mean, it just
our source, I just wanted to say my Hearthstone is broken. Can you help me, sir?
Yeah. That's a reason. That's hold on. That's a reason why over the last several weeks I've been working to drive any sort of what I would call a general support request to specific threads on the COL forum, so that if it's something a Diabolic can do other than myself, they can just get it done and mark it done. If it's something that only I can do and they haven't noticed I marked it seen, they can remind me and I can get it done and get it added. I'm trying to manage time better so that I can spend more time coding and less time, dealing with this one issue that 25 people have IM'd me about, kind of thing. If we get things sort of centralized in one place, I am not closing my doors to people. I'm not saying don't IM me or don't IM me on Patreon. In fact, if you are a COL member and you need direct support from me on a sensitive issue or what have you, Patreon's still the best way to do it, because I'm going to see that at least once every 2 or 3 days, and I'm going to get back to you. Well, sometimes that may be a week or so, but it just depends on how busy I am. But I will get to those first always, and then Discord, and then in-world messages and what have you. People can still come to me if they want to talk. Just remember, I don't have a lot of time to be social. And, but if you need to talk to me about something, you can still do it. But if what you need to talk to me about would benefit other people, or that the answer to that question would be good for a lot of people to know, post it in the threads where I can respond once to everybody, rather than have 25 or 100 private conversations about it.
Yes. It's way more
Yeah.
efficient. And I don't
Yeah.
think people realize, they like to complain a lot, but I don't think they realize DDoS attack is very serious. Like
And
that takes
very
a
costly.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
it took a lot of your time to have to deal with all of this. So
Well,
as our appearance says, patience is a virgin, people.
yeah, I get the stuff. So we've talked about the things I've gotten done, and then
Yes.
we talked about the fact I felt I ran into a brick wall, and that is to do with what I call the potency triad. Right. My next step was to get the potency apparatus and the potency crystals back into play, because you need potency crystals to use the reliquary effectively, and I really want to get that into play, because once the reliquary's back online, it'll reduce a lot of the complaints, and maybe I can relax some of the restrictions on when and where people can attack, because people can then defend themselves with their potency using these reliquaries. But as I was working on that, there's been a recent rash of reported but not yet corroborated issues of people spoofing different things on the system. And I've got a number of reports of people potentially spoofing the Dove, which is an encrypted and restricted message. And if that is the case, my entire system, intercommunication system, is somewhat compromised. So,
No.
well, I don't know that it's true or not. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that it actually is. But the fact that it might be worries me enough that I have changed part of how I'm doing things. I already, previous to this conversation, decided to change how the HUD to HUD communication works. In other words, Vampire Ben bites Vampire Jane. Vampire Ben's HUD sends a message to Vampire Jane's HUD saying, "Oh, Ben just bit you for 1 liter of blood." It flies out the message, "You're being bitten by Ben," and the blood meter goes down, right? And then at that point, Vampire Jane's HUD would do an update, call the server, and get an update. Then suddenly, "Oh no, you're not being bitten." Then the blood comes back up, but there's no message to say you're not actually being bitten, because the server doesn't know about the fake message. So the way the new HUD works is, the HUD has, I think I've talked about this on the show before, the new HUD has 2 modes of operation: passive and emergency or active mode. And when it's in passive mode, maybe once every 15 or 20 seconds, it'll get a heartbeat. It'll go out and say, "Hey, server, what's my status? Are there any messages for me?" When it goes into emergency mode, it happens every 3 seconds, which is about the time of an average bite cycle. So when you're in combat mode, when you're in emergency mode, your HUD's calling out every 3 seconds to get a status update, so it can keep all your meters and everything status. And what happens when Vampire Frank bites Vampire Jane? I think I just changed names. Anyway,
Yes.
when
Ben,
Vampire
you're
Frank,
out of here.
oh, Ben's out of here. Yeah, Ben TP'd away. He had to go have dinner. So when Frank bites Jane, Frank's HUD now sends Jane a note, bite alert. But Vampire Jane's HUD doesn't immediately fly out that message. Vampire Jane's HUD says, "Am I already in active status? If so, or an emergency status? If so, it's already checking every 3 seconds. It'll pick up that bite alert on the next cycle, and it'll fly that out within a second or two of receiving that message anyway. So it just ignores it. But if it's not in emergency mode, it immediately goes into emergency mode and triggers the first ping of that, in which case it picks up the result and displays it on the HUD, and blah blah blah, it goes on. if it goes to the server and doesn't find anything, it goes back out of emergency mode back into passive mode, and things go on. So in other words, it becomes impossible to spoof a byte. Beyond that, I've also changed how diabolic beacons work, which is when the diabolic uses the HUD to dove everybody, the same way that the current reliquary works by sending out a diabolic beacon. It's an encrypted message that gets sent out to every HUD in the area on a specific channel, and then it's encrypted with certain information that helps prevent it from being copied and then used again later by nefarious individuals. Well, that's no longer going to happen that way. It's now basically sending out that same kind of alert message that causes HUDs nearby to go into a different kind of emergency mode. It's like a one-cycle emergency mode saying, hey, go get your messages, and then it will pick up, oh, this area is sanctified for such a large space, and you're in it, therefore go dove until you either move out of the space or a clear message has been achieved. So again, no longer possible to be spoofed. And then the last bit is the HUD when the user has pop-up windows where they say check their target, or they want to do a gentle bite or a normal bite or a ravage bite. Those kind of things are now happening on a much, much more random comm channel. So ideally, the new HUD will not be spoofable and will be much harder to detect via comm channel. So that will reduce the potential for progeny detectors to detect progeny, and for other people to nefariously spoof the system. The downside is that now all three of these devices plus the HUD all need to be updated at the same time, because they need to work together, and they all need to know how to communicate with one another. So it just became a much bigger sort of task for me. Instead of knocking out one, then the other, I kind of have to do them all four at once, which is what I'm doing now.
Oh,
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of work.
Hey.
Yeah. So it's like all of the things I've done over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, all the things I've done over the last couple of weeks, multiply it by 6, and then stir it up in a pot, and that's what I'm working on now. And I'm probably halfway-ish done with them. So the other advantage is the new HUD doesn't need fangs. It's back in the HUD, and it's still, what's the word I'm looking for here? Safe against people trying to hack it and add in extra byte scripts.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds very efficient. Much better.
Do you guys want to know a secret?
Yes. Tell us a secret.
I'll tell you a secret. Gavin, Arch Gavin made the Heartstone Silver Dagger for me. He did. He built the dagger. He built the object, and he did the basic scripting on the object. He did a really good job of it, to the point that it was really easy for me to, because he didn't have access to the system or APIs or anything. He just simply scripted it up, and he made like a fake back end to pull data and do what it needs to do without actually connecting to the system. Because of that, and the way he did that, it made it very easy for me to then update that script. He gave it to me as full perm. I simply updated his original script, added in the stuff for making it Progeny language neutral, which uses the Progeny language system, and then communicate with the real system. And I was able to knock that out in like a day. So I was super, super, super pleased with that. As a result, because I am currently tied up with a cajillion things, trying to knock as much out at once as possible, I have, as of a few days ago, tasked him with making a Phase 1 Therian Throat HUD beta. So he is actively working on that right now as we speak. With the rest of the Diabolics are now involved in that conversation. this will not be the full planned feature set, but it will get us started with some of the more important and needed Therianthrope features. So we have a Therianthrope HUD being developed as we speak. So
That is excellent. That's very
yeah.
exciting news.
Yeah, I did, had somebody on, I forget the name of who it was, on the thread, talking about how they've been wanting Therianthrope and they've been in the COL and in Progeny for years, and that nothing ever seemed to be getting done with it. And I did mention that, I had started on it, and then, we got sidetracked when we got torpedoed.
Yeah.
So, but the fact is the fact. I never got back to it. And at the rate I'm going, I'm making really, really good progress. But it may be 2, maybe 3 months before I'd have time to work on it again. This way, by bringing Gavin in, he's not at this time coming in to be a diabolic or anything like that. He's just sort of acting as a coding assistant for me. So call him an arch vampire who is also sort of my infernal, sort of unofficial one. But he's just helping me knock some stuff out so we can get some stuff done. And so far, I'm pleased with his work. So if this works out, then we'll reevaluate his position at a later date. But for now, I'm pretty excited because having somebody like him helping me knock out needed devices to where I can focus on the Progeny side of things, whereas somebody else is focusing on the in-world development side of things, we can get more done. So I am very hopeful that this phase 1 beta HUD will come out, really nice, and we'll see. So
that is excellent news.
I definitely really want to try, but tough times in the world these days, I gotta tell you. But
yeah, it can be.
Jobs are coming up, people.
Yeah. One question that I was also asked in the Diabolic Conclave is about existing vampires being able to transfer to Therianthropes, and whether or not they'll be able to take their age and roles with them.
Yes.
That is going to come up, and the answer is yes and no. Therianthropes will not work in a one-to-one like vampires. They're not just a new skin on vampires. They function differently. They'll have different abilities. They'll have different ways of working within the system. So they may not have age in the way vampires do. They may not have roles in the way that vampires do. But I do want to be able to recognize a person's time in the system and investment in the COL if they choose to switch over to Therianthrope, and at the same time give up their vampire or convert their vampire. I don't want them to have a heavy loss, but I may simply not be able to transfer some things because there may not be a similar feature on that side. But what I can do is bank those things and say, okay, at such a time when I release a new feature for the Therianthrope that is akin in some way, shape, or form, then maybe be able to cash in that cached status or whatever and do so. So the short answer is most stuff probably won't transfer right away. But in the long run, I want to be able to make sure that people get some equivalent value for their time as a vampire in their role as a lycanthrope, if that is what they want to do. Assuming they want to switch. If they're going to end up playing both, then you don't get a instantly boost your new one to your old one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd
That
be
makes
kinda
sense.
unfair,
Yeah.
like a draconian going into a wolf.
Yeah. So, but
sense.
yeah,
Right.
we will work it out. And there's a lot of stuff that's still not yet set about how the Therianthrope HUD's going to work and what features it's going to have and all that. We know some stuff, but it's so much in flux right now. I don't even want to talk about it just yet. But it is at least in progress.
That's very exciting news.
Well, that's wonderful because
Yes.
My friend Mystique Q, she works really hard on it and loves being a therianthrope and
Oh yes.
has done so much for that community. She's just rooting for it. Good job, Mystique.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing wrong with using the progeny vampire system and just saying, "Oh, I'm a therianthrope. I'm not a vampire," and doing it just the way you're doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
With your role play is your role play, but a lot of people want a dedicated therianthrope system, and they want to not be a vampire. And I intend to make the therianthrope HUD based on werewolf and other therianthrope lore that I'm aware of. So as I was kind of talking to the Diabolics today, it's going to be more of a rage based, self control based system, whereas vampires kind of hunt and farm humans. Therianthropes more or less reduce the food supply, and that brings in the need for slayers who will eventually probably target more therianthropes than they do vampires, because vampires on average don't kill their food because that reduces their food supply, whereas lycanthropes, if they lose control of their rage and shapeshift in the middle of a crowded dance floor, just make a bunch of hamburger. So
Yeah,
yeah.
most
Yes.
definitely.
Anyway, we'll see how it works out. I'm just really excited that it's actually in progress and likely to have something in the works really soon. So hopefully that'll make people happy.
Oh yeah, very
Winter
good
has
news.
come, y'all.
It's
Things
very
get
good
done.
news.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we say goodnight?
Well,
No, I
it's
think that
just
covers it.
really been an honor, and
Yes. Always. We're very honored to have you speak to the community through us. And wow, great job. Thank you so much. We all really appreciate all the work that you've done.
I appreciate it. It's I'm really happy to be getting a lot of these things that have been kind of hanging fixed. And truth is, I've been working on a lot of them for a long time, but I just needed to sit down, keep some blinders on, stop answering emails, and get it done.
Yes. Yes.
or what was it, Larry? That I won't get copyrighted, but get her done.
Get her done.
Oh,
Yep.
yes. Get her done. Yes.
Yep. So, no, I can't keep blinders on and keep my nose to the grindstone indefinitely, but I'm trying to maintain a better balance now, at least scheduling certain days of the week where I'm going to work on stuff and I'm not going to talk to people. so
Yes,
so far
that makes sense.
that seems to be working. So we'll try to keep it up.
Well, you're doing a great job. Thank you so very much.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night and keep up
Yes,
the good
you
work with
too.
the show.
And
Oh,
And
hope,
thank you.
I'll come back on. Go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say I hope we can get you back on either before or after Christmas, but before the new year.
Yep. We'll try to make that happen. Oh, should be able to make that happen. So give me a couple weeks. Let me try to get this potency triad beast tamed and put out there, and then figure out what's next on my priority list, because I've still got a ton of stuff that needs to get done. So have a
And
good night,
everyone,
everybody.
keep watching the COL group and Discord for updates. He posts them frequently. So that's where you
Yep.
get a lot of your information. Hot off
Yeah,
the
and generally speaking, if it's like a notice type of thing, it goes under the notice thread. That's more of a general purpose. Hey, this is important. Pay attention. And then the source nude thread, the source news thread is generally, hey, this is just, it's like my tweets, what I'm working on, changes I'm making, thoughts I'm having, that sort of thing. So if you're
And
really
that
that
takes a lot
interested,
of time for you to do as well. So everyone,
yeah,
please be patient, understanding, and realize everything that's gone on. So you're doing a great job. We really thank you.
I appreciate it. You guys have a good night.
You
You
too, sir.
too. Thank you
Bye-bye.
again.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, like and subscribe, or Ming will come after you. Rawr.